Hello, I'm Chris, and this is another funny philosophy, and this is gonna be a very unplanned one, very unscripted. I thought I'd riff with all these videos. I basically start off with an initial idea, riff on it philosophically, think aloud. It's quite informal, unedited, so just what this is all about. So I thought I'd riff on the concept of, as Emil Cioran, the Romanian nihilist philosopher, have put it, organic philosophers versus abstract philosophers, if I remember the terms correctly that he uses. In one of his early works, I think he discusses this. I've sort of touched on this a bit before, but I'm going to just roll with it with a few thoughts of my own on this, and yeah. So an organic philosopher is sort of like basically the same as the split between analytical and continental philosophy, so which is commonly understood as it's quite hard to describe actually what the split is between them, but basically analytical philosophy was more like logic and mathematics, just trying to find a language that in a sense that describes, in philosophy, that describes reality. So still holding to that idea that there is a truths out there to be found in the world, right, that are objective. Continental philosophy is more close to something like obviously, because roots from Nietzsche ends up with postmodernism, Derrida or Guattari, Baudrillard, all that sort of thing. That's my very basic understanding of it. Look, I'm not really a philosophy major, but I have an interest in it, but that is my understanding of the basic distinction that's made between these two schools of thought. Now, in I think it's in The Heights of Despair, Cioran talks about how he thinks that abstract philosophers are, it's like someone like Plato would be a good example of that, or Aristotle, I suppose. They have a desire to create a framework that describes reality, right? So a metaphysics, a way, a totalizing system that describes all of how reality functions, logically, and yeah, basically that's just someone who believes that is possible to do. Now, Cioran himself obviously was a much more nihilistic, pessimistic, extreme pessimistic, really, philosopher. So he didn't really believe in that notion of something existing outside of our own selves that could be described as objective truth, I guess, if I was to sum it up in any way. Now, I did find some interest when I first read of this. I mean, Cioran didn't really like his first work. It was his very early work. It's when he was in his 20s, I think. He was wrecked with insomnia during the writing of much of it. He considered it a very immature work later in his life. It was the first work of his I wrote. It's probably one of the more accessible pieces as well. I've also read the History of Decay, which is interesting, but much more. Actually, I found much more depressing in some respects. Anyway, I'll talk about this a bit more. So, in some respects, when you actually think about what the pursuit of knowledge is, or if you think about what we do with our knowledge, or that we find that as either in the world or in nature waiting to be discovered, or is something we create like a technology, you can view it obviously and think, well, what's it all for? Like, we're born into uncertainty. We don't really know where we came from ultimately. We don't know what our fate as individuals and as a species is. It's invariably going to obviously include mutation, because that's how we got here in the first place anyway. I mean, got to this point of irritating. So I think the human beings as we are today will not be anything like that in about thousands of years, probably maybe less, with cybernetic evolution or post-humanism, I guess. But that's probably the nature just of how this universe that we're born into, which is chaotic, and obviously if you hold to a pessimistic view, then there isn't a fundamental structure underlying it all. But then obviously awakening, if you will, to such a realization isn't going to be pleasant, right? Because you think, because we are, I think, especially even in modern culture, we are culturally programmed, mentally programmed to seek order, right? We want a religious orthodoxy, we want an easy ideological sort of explanation for how things are. The harsh reality of reality itself is that, arguably, is that there isn't a simple explanation for it. Much of our lives are spent in doubt. When it comes to God, I mean, wars, thousands of people, millions of people have died fighting over that question, and are we any closer to finding an answer? No, it's just a self-perpetuating mind virus if you really want to be cynical about it. And it is a bit like a virus religion in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm all for religious freedom, obviously, of course, but I'm a secularist, but if you want to view it cynically, I mean, religion is just a pill that people take that gives them an easy answer to all those questions. And the much harder thing to do, obviously, is to go out into the wilderness and to contemplate it deeply. And I guess everyone has a different relationship to the unknown, which, I mean, another word for God, if you want to put it that way. But anyway, I realise I'm going off on a lot of threads. That's sort of the point of these videos, is that I start off with a thread and then thread it in my head. But yeah, so obviously one of the drawbacks with the nihilistic awakening, if you will, is how can it not provoke alienation? Because you're going from a state of having some certainty about some things to doubting everything, and it's like a extremely skeptical position to hold. In fact, the most extreme one. I mean, in terms of how I've approached nihilism philosophically, I just went from nihilism to absurdism. That's like a transition I've gone through a few times in my life, where I felt that nihilistic, destructive impulse philosophically, right? So I go, because I mean, obviously you get alienated with life. Like I'm feeling quite a lot of alienation at the minute. But I mean, if I gave in completely to despair, then it raises the question of, well, why carry on existing? But that's something that each individual has to determine themselves, right? In my view, anyway. You have to figure out that reason for getting up every morning. And the universe is a bizarre place. We are mech skeletons, wandering around. We live in a house. Like, that's quite bizarre. Just that alone. Capitalism's bizarre. Communism's bizarre. All the ideological things, in a lot of ways, are quite bizarre when you really think of them. We go into communal churches that existed for hundreds of years. For what? For solace, for community, for healing, all sorts of reasons. But for power as well. I mean, it's complicated. Human beings are complicated. I think one of the reasons that I dislike what you might call ideological reality tunnels is the fact that they claim that there are simple answers. But then I suppose, just to argue against my own argument, am I not just being a stickler, saying, well, if it's simple then it can't be true? Which is not necessarily true, and that A doesn't follow B from that, in terms of a logical proposition. Just because something's simple doesn't therefore imply that it doesn't imply some order that exists out there. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So, I don't know where I started. So yeah, basically, I think more naturally I'm more drawn to finding holes in philosophical systems, or I wouldn't say just destroying them. I'm not that good a philosopher, Christ, but I find it much easier to find problems with philosophical frameworks or ideas than I do to have solutions that I think apply, which is why for myself personally, I would consider myself much more of an organic philosopher. I'm more about breaking systems down to their fundamental elements and taking them to bits, which makes sense because I'm an engineer as well, so that's much more my mindset in general. And yeah, I'm skeptical of philosophers who, obviously unless they use the methods of scientific inquiry and the scientific method to prove a hypothesis, until if your work is applied to that, then I don't think it. I think it is just blowing hot air, which a lot of philosophy is, obviously. But still, or can be anyway. But I don't know where else to go with this. This is obviously quite a disjointed vlog format. I purposely make these just a complete stream of consciousness because I just think it's more interesting that way, to be honest. Anyway, I'm repeating myself. Where can I go from here? So, continue on with the absurdism thing. You can think, as long as life probably is quite absurd. You'll find yourself in absurd situations. You're going to come across imperfection. That's just life. Life is imperfect. I think being a mature individual is basically being able to navigate through that. In terms of going back to the nihilistic awakening thing, that can really drive people insane. I think especially now in this age of where we're more connected but yet more disconnected than ever. I think obviously we have a huge problem with young men getting completely alienated and in the worst case going into the black pill inceldom, which is, it's not really a path to anything really. All you're doing there is just going into despair and giving up really. And I can understand how guys can get in that position, where you're just not having much luck with the ladies or any at all. You're maybe physically unwell, physically unfit, and you don't maybe have that great self-confidence. I don't know how I've got onto this, but whatever, I'm going to roll with it. You're either going to move forward with that, and try and change something, otherwise you're just going to be stuck in stasis. And in a funny way, actually, incels, it seems to me anyway, have developed an entire philosophical framework. It's not great philosophy, it's obviously shit, but they've developed an entire justification for why they aren't getting laid that basically heaps all the blame at the feet of modern women, feminism, all this sort of stuff, which is patently absurd. Obviously, feminism is a massively broad church. You've got everything from queer theory feminists to more conservative feminists to intersectional feminists to whatever. There's just many. It's like saying it's just an absurd thing to say. Because feminism is a discourse and a theory of the way the world is that's quite diverse. It's not like one thing. And I guess people could say, incels aren't one thing, they're just abroad, which is true as well. But just judging from the content I've seen online from, black pill incel, obviously on the extreme end of it, it's extremely toxic. All women are this, all women are sort of sluts or whatever, or women are. There's a lot of pop psychology that comes into it as well, right? I don't know where I'm going with this, but basically, I mean, if you are one of these guys, I don't know, probably not, but I guess some might fall on like a nihilistic philosophy video, or nihilist, just exploring nihilism as a philosophy. I mean, the way to get out of despair is not to get drowned in it, really. I mean, you can feel despair, obviously, when emotions come. You have to feel them on some level. You know, like, and everyone has failures. Like, what you do with failure is the key question. You have to work through it. You have to, like, figure out, you almost approach it philosophically. Why are the reasons I'm failing? I mean, know that everybody fails. I mean, that's just... Even the most successful people have failed multiple times until they've been lucky enough or failed enough times to learn not what to do. The essence of success in life is failing a bunch of times. I mean, it's like when you ride a bike, you're going to fall over a bunch of times, then you're going to get really good at it, and it'll be second nature, right? It's the same with... I mean, if you're... Look, I'm not that great. I'm not naturally charismatic and everything with women, but... You learn and you slowly, and then I think also part of it is just like accept that maybe it's just not who you are. Maybe you're not like fucking slick dick, walk into a room and women want to jump on your dick, man. Like, and what? Who gives a fuck? I mean, sex is alright and everything, but I don't know. I mean, in some respects, I think our culture has been messaging to us constantly, and is messaging to us constantly, that we should just be like going on like that, everything just like that should be the key driver in our pursuits in life. It's just to get out there. I mean, and yeah, on some biologically deterministic level, I guess it is. It's to go out there and start spreading it, like. But and on some level, it is like, you know, that is our key biological drives. But you don't want to create a life's meaning or get too hung up on that. You know, we will get horny. I mean, that's part of being human, right? Usually, unless you're asexual, which it's a big bit controversial. I'm not even so sure I believe that even exists as a thing, but it does. People identify as it, so I have to respect it, I guess. But I don't know. Me being a horny bisexual of sorts, I'm sort of just very skeptical of asexuality. But anyway, that doesn't matter. Whatever. Like, if you're not having sex, go knock yourself out. Anyway, I think I rambled for enough time there. I've probably gone way off track with. I don't really know what the main point of this is. It's almost poetic, considering this is a vlog exploring nihilism and from the starting point of that. Abstract and organic philosophies. Look into it if you want to read more into some stuff that's sort of interesting from Cioran. I said shit on them. Shit on. Yeah, I've been Chris. Like and subscribe if you found any of this even vaguely funny or enjoyable or interesting. This is just what I do on this channel. I just ramble for 20 minutes about philosophy, have a few attempts at original thought, and then I just go, and that's that really. Anyway, in a bit.